Welcome to this week's video. This week is NAS heavy. For those that don't know, NAS stands for Network Attached Storage. I've been wanting to build one of these for a long time. I've been dealing with a sketchy Windows setup with a USB hub and a bunch of USB hard drives, and it never worked quite right, not even to mention permissions. I could rant longer. Anyways, thanks to these videos and me being a data hoarder that wants to back up all of the raw footage that I take, I'm finally able to justify spending the money on one. So I get deep into that and pretty much set up the whole thing this week. It didn't leave time for much else, not to mention I wasn't feeling too great, but I did work on our new free Tandem bike and selling a couple of cars of mine.
All the hardware for my NAS is in, so we're going to build it. Actually, I'm not going to build it. Leah's going to build it because apparently she's never built a computer before because I just gave her my old one. This is a really interesting piece of hardware, and I'm pretty sure it's very similar to, if not the exact thing they had in here before. It takes up one of the PCIe slots, and then it converts it to these connectors. Each of these connectors can carry the data for 4 hard drives. There's a couple of things we got to do before we put this in the case. Usually you'd pretty much build everything except for the GPU before you put it in the case, but we're going to put it in the case a little earlier since we have these tricky standoff screws. Actually, first you put this in.
In here?
Yep, other way on the inside. So you're going to want to push down on that lever and kind of pull it out and bring that up. So pull it out and flip it up. And then flip up the plastic thing. Yep, just like that. And then you'll see right there's an arrow. And there's also an arrow on your CPU, and that helps you orient it. And anyways, you want to very carefully just set it in there. The arrow matching. And then give it a little wiggle. Make sure it's seated. And then you just bring that back down, set it down. And then you use the lever to push it in. Yep, and that pops out.
Oh.
The lever all the way in. Okay, so that's your CPU. Next, we're going to want to mount this thing. This is a really easy one to mount. Plus, it has thermal paste already applied to it, so you don't have to bother with thermal paste. Usually, I'd probably put some real thermal paste on there, but because this is so low performance, we're just going to go with stock. But actually, before that, you need to install your SSD, which goes right there. See where the holes are? Yeah, they're up near the top.
I feel like it shouldn't take. Oh,
there it goes.
Okay, it did take that much force.
So now is your cooler, and that goes on the back. It's called the back plate, and then see these little screw holes. They are what you screw it into from this. Something like that, yeah. Yep. So you need to pick up your motherboard and put your back plate on the back.
Oh.
It's a back plate.
It goes like there.
Yeah, but you have to align it correctly. It has an orientation. It is not the correct orientation. There you go. See how the screws line up? They were smart and they made it so it couldn't go on wrong. So what you're going to do is you're going to pop off the plastic piece. And then be careful not to smudge that. And just drop her straight down onto the CPU. And then you want to screw them down just until I think they bottom out. And then the springs is what controls your mounting pressure.
Oh. Why are there 4 prongs?
Notice how it has the little guide thing, so line it up with those 3.
Okay.
And you're going to want to set it in and line up the holes you see around the edge and stuff with the little standoffs we have in here.
Ooh.
Let's see, do we have this in here?
It looks weird.
It does look weird, you are correct. Here, let's put in that screw right there. And like I said, this is not, there's no screw, it's a standoff. Oh, is this supposed to be used without standoffs or something? Here, pop the motherboard out. Maybe that's why this motherboard shroud was in plastic still at our company. Maybe our chassis are just not compatible with the motherboard shrouds. Let's just leave that out and then put the motherboard back in. So yeah, it was too tall.
These are dumb.
They're standoffs. So next, I guess we can do the RAM. You're going to want to pop all those back on both sides.
Oh, they do look the same.
And then you'll notice they're longer on one side than the other. And so you want to line that up with the side that's longer in the motherboard and then stick them in and you just push straight down. You want to push down until it clicks. You did not quite get that in there. Yeah, you gotta push pretty hard. Let's see if I have a spare one of these screws because it didn't come with the one that I need. Let's see if I have a spare one of those. Let's see, are any of these that style? Here we are. I think this is them. Oh, yep, that's it. Before we hook up this thing, let's hook up all our power cables. So yeah, you can hook up those. This is your USB 3 header, and that goes in that port there. It is kind of a tricky one to plug in. That's the things like the power button, that sort of thing.
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
Yes, there's no standard, and so you just have to figure out what they are based on what they're labeled as. They should be labeled on the motherboard. Oh, there you go. All right, so see that little diagram there? You need to match those up with those and plug them in correctly. This is one of the things that is most confusing about PC building. Like, how have they not figured this out yet?
Wait, this is power LED.
So that needs to go to...
That's down here.
This reset might be easy. Reset plus minus, is that 2 pins?
Yeah.
Yeah, so put that across the reset switch. What else do we have? What is that one?
HDD LED.
I think that one, yeah, that one does have 2 pins on here. That's easy. Power LED only has 1 pin?
Where does the ground go?
This is, again, I cannot believe someone has not figured some sort of standard out. This is insane. So let's hope we got that right. Oh, and then we need, yeah, CPU power, which I think is that. Wait, where's our motherboard power? It should be one that goes in there. It goes with this one. And a lot of times they'll kind of interconnect together. And then that goes in together. Look on the side where it clips. I think you have it oriented correctly. There. If it fits, it sits.
I don't think that's how people do it in computers, but okay.
I think we were just left with this, and this would normally be your GPU, but in our case, it is an expansion card for whatever that type of connector is that I forget the name of right now. So that just slots into there. You want to line up the bottom with the slot. So you push it. Yeah, you push it down, pop it in. I think, yeah, there it goes. And get it on the other side. That felt good. Yeah, look at that. That's lined up. And then put your screw in. I think you got it. So first thing we need, I think we probably need this other, no, that's only 4 pins. Do we have a 6 pin? You might need to undo these zip ties and re-zip tie it up. This would be for like your GPU, and these is kind of similar to the CPU where they like nest together for an 8 pin. But obviously we just need the 6 pins, so that's in. That's just fine. We'll just stuff all those cables over there. It doesn't need to be perfect. Oh, are these fans? They must be controlled via the hard drive board. Let's see, where do they go? Yeah, they come out of this little daughter board in here, so they must be controlled somehow that way. You must base them off of the temps of the hard drives, which is really interesting. Which would make sense. That would be cool. So our next thing is going to be hooking up these 4 cables, which are what communicates our hard drives to the motherboard. Yes, you remember the name that I did not.
SAS.
They're the SAS HD Mini or something. Probably this opening's a lot more open. Let's go through it. Let's see if we take the fan out, it might be a little easier. So now I get to spend time fiddling with my old NAS thing and trying to get the drives removed because I'm using a software for Windows called Drivepool. And so I think I basically have to copy the data out of the pool and onto the drives, and then I can just slot them into this and all the data will still be there. Technically, I guess I could temporarily copy the data onto these 16 terabyte drives, but that sounds like a lot of work. So I have all of my drives in here, including 2.5 inches up here. And I believe I just pressed the power button. I didn't mean to do that. Well, let's see what happens. I have a boot USB in the back, but I also have 5 hard drives up front. Let's see if I get any display out here. I realize I don't have a keyboard or a mouse. Oh, hey, we got Gigabyte. Just turned off and restarted. I probably need to go grab a keyboard and get into the BIOS menu and boot from that media. All right, we are in the BIOS. Let's see if we can get it to boot from that USB drive. Boot option number 1, UEFI USB. Okay, we're back here. Let's go hit F12 to get to that boot menu. Okay, let's try booting from USB. Oh, hey, try or install Ubuntu server. There we go. I look like a hacker man, don't I? I'm so excited. There's actual lights on the front to show which drives are in use. So this one has a light, this one has a light, this one has a light, and this one has a light, but this one does not. So let me just try unplugging this one. Well, that would be your problem. I plugged it in backwards. There's no ports on that side. That thar is your problem. Jeez. There, now it's detected. I wonder if it'll instantly show up in the OS or what? Doesn't look like it, so it probably would require a restart. Well, I think the interesting part of this is about done. I got the Ubuntu server installed. Now I need to just install SnapRaid and MergerFS and get all that stuff configured. But overall, pretty uneventful, which is good. I'll update you when I'm done or no more. If you're wondering why there's a fridge behind me, it's because our fridge died. We found that fridge for free on the side of the road, so it's not really a huge loss, but we liked it better than the one that came with this place. Anyways, I'm about done for the evening working on the NAS. I somehow corrupted or messed up my boot drive, and I'm debating just starting from scratch again. I don't really think there was any data on there aside from what I've been working on tonight, but whatever it is, it's gonna happen tomorrow. Yep, it is Linux, and Linux will let you mess up, no problem. No guardrails. I'll get it figured out tomorrow or during the week though. All right, so it's a new day. I've had time to think. I didn't actually get that far. It just took me a long time because I was learning everything. So I think I'm just gonna do a clean install and start again. All my data on my hard drive should be safe, so always risky and nerve-wracking. But anyways, we're gonna do a clean install of Ubuntu server on my boot SSD and go from there. So right now, as you probably can't see from how far away you are, I am copying all of my data off of my 5 existing drives, a 1 terabyte, a 2 terabyte, a 6 terabyte, an 8 terabyte, and another 8 terabyte. I'm copying all of that data off onto the new 2 16 terabytes. I'm doing this because Linux plays a lot nicer with ext4 formatted drives versus these drives which are from Windows, so they are a different format, NTFS to be specific. So I'd like to get all the data off of them and reformat them as ext4. All these scripts are running in the background, which was fun to figure out for me. And then I wrote this script in Bash, which I'm familiar with thanks to work, to refresh every 5 seconds with the current progress. As you can see, the 2 terabyte is almost finished, but the rest of them have quite a long time left. It looks like the larger drives could have as long as 4 or 5 hours left. Well, the 2 8 terabytes are still copying at the end of the day here. It's time for bed. Guess we'll let it run overnight. Well, it's the next day. The copies have finished. I verified that all the files are the same on the 16 terabyte drives that I copied them to versus the other drives that I copied them from using a command. What else have I used? Now I get to do the very stressful process of formatting my old drives to ext4. I haven't turned off the camera yet because I'm procrastinating. Well, I've formatted all of my drives, all 5 of them. 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 6 terabyte, 8 terabyte, and 8 terabyte. However, I did have to copy data to what is going to be my parity drive. The parity drive stores data in case any of the drives fail, and so that drive needs to be empty when I create the pool, and so I'm gonna have to copy all of the data back off of the parity drive and onto the individual drives, and so I've got that set up here. It's gonna take quite a bit of time. And after that, I think I'm actually ready to start setting up my pools and using this NAS. It's only been, a few days, but hey, we're getting there. It is the next morning. It's still copying. I think the last drive is at about 80%, going at about 60 megabytes a second. Right now, it has an estimated time remaining of 3 to 5 hours. So hopefully by tonight, I can start working on this, though I still haven't edited this Friday's video, so maybe I'll have to procrastinate on this a little bit longer. Yet another update of me not setting up the software on the NAS. I did get the MergerFS pool set up today, which essentially makes the drives appear as one, so you can just access one drive instead of a bunch. However, due to the way I copied the data to the drives, I need to copy it out of folders into the main directory. When I say copy, I actually mean copy, because from what I could learn, Linux doesn't have a way to merge existing folders unless you copy and then delete the originals, which takes a lot longer than just moving the stuff. Only about 3 hours left, so it should be done tomorrow. So what has it been, a week? I can get started on this thing maybe? Get it set up? It's been difficult to maintain my excitement, but I am still excited. All right, this is exciting. I finally got all of my data shuffled around to where it needs to be, and I'm doing my first SnapRaid sync. What this is doing is it's copying all of the parity data, all of the backup data in case a drive fails, to the one parity disk. So it's going to be done around 5:40, and right now it is about noon. So it's going to take about 5 hours. After this, I need to set up my cron jobs, which are essentially scheduled jobs that will run this command automatically. And then I need to set up a command to copy files from the SSD cache to all of the hard drives automatically. And then I'll need to set up all of the stuff so I can access it remotely, access it on my Windows computers, all of that fun stuff. We are making progress though.
Yet another instance of me not recording audio properly. I still have not pinned this exact issue down. Anyways, what you're looking at here is my brand new LG Wing phone back. You might remember that I cracked the one that was supposed to go on there when I was taking it off. Well, the new one finally came in, and the first thing I did was drop it on the corner of my desk. So another $12 later, another one is in the mail. What I'm actually out here for is to replace the brakes on this Tandem that I broke while putting it into or taking it out of the Volvo. In the process of doing this, I discovered how awful these brakes are. They don't actually have anything to hold each side away from the rim. They just hold each other apart from each other. And so one of them might rub on one side the whole time. It probably doesn't make a huge difference, but mentally it's like my brakes are rubbing, what the heck? However, they should be functional, so this bike is ready to get out on the road. Well, I didn't get to play with this anymore tonight. The SnapRaid sync is only at 50% with an ETA of afternoon and counting tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be able to get back to this tomorrow. All right, my SnapRaid sync finished earlier today, and I got Samba set up, which is essentially a system to allow you to access files from my Linux server, my NAS, on a Windows PC. And so if we go over to my computer, see there's my old NAS. I haven't mapped this one to a network drive yet. So if we go to the correct address, then you'll see all my files. And what I was able to do is make sure that this directory could be writable by a public user. So I can give that username to anyone and they can just read everything on the server, but they can only write and delete files from this folder. And then I can have full access to the whole server. I got this to work first try on Linux with a little help from ChatGPT and Google searching. On my Windows setup, I had spent hours trying to get permissions to cooperate, and on this, it just worked first try, no problems. I am so excited. All right, I think I'm done setting this up, at least for the time being. Also, I got some screws for the motherboard so we can actually properly mount that. I guess this will also be a good test to see if all of the stuff that I set up will restart on boot. Not quite as automatic as you might think it is on Windows. Now to move the server. God, this thing is heavy. It only has 5 drives in it, and it weighs a freaking ton already. Jesus Christ. There we go. That's where she's gonna live. I'm gonna be honest, this is making me wish I had 2.5 gig or even 5 gig. I don't want to spend that money right now. This is fine. I'm not going to need to use it this much. It just takes a little extra time. It's fine. Yes, there's still a fridge in the background. I need to buy a utility trailer for the Volvo. Anyways, I wanted to explain that my Plex server is still running on this laptop here. It just lives under my entertainment console. You know, the cooling fans are here, so it cools itself just fine. And I know that I complained about this thing quite a bit, but it actually has a 1050 GPU in it, a GTX 1050. So this thing could actually like run games and stuff. I gamed on it back in the day, you know, Grand Theft Auto 5. It could run that just fine, as well as any other game I really wanted to play. Plex can take advantage of that GPU power and use it to encode video. And I actually have noticed places where the CPU would struggle, and it really is taking advantage of that 1050. And so that's why this is still running my Plex server. Not to mention that I didn't really buy good hardware for my NAS because I just want to use it as a NAS. It doesn't need to do anything. And so just having this laptop sit here and run Plex should work completely fine, because all the issues I was having with this laptop were to do with the USB hub and all those USB hard drives. It just didn't work. And so take that out of the equation. This is actually a great little Plex machine now, and it just accesses all the files over the network. Let's get this thing booted up again though. This is, I believe, the proper way to mount a drive is just throw it in there, call it a day. All right, so I recorded a bunch of footage over the week that I was setting this thing up. And if you watched all of it, it might make some sense, but then the video would be quite literally 2 hours long, and I'm not doing that. So instead, I've brought you in here. This thing is fully set up for now, excluding some other stuff that I want to add to it in the future. But I'm just going to show you what my setup looks like and try to explain it in the best way I can, considering I haven't written a script. All All right, let's get started. All right, so let's get started with what I got started with. I started by pooling the drives into a single pool, and you do this with a program called Merger FS. So these two lines here that have commented slow pool and cache pool, those are my two pools. So the slow pool includes all of the hard drives, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 6 terabyte, 8 terabyte, 8 terabyte, and then the disk 5, which is a 16 terabyte. Then the cache pool includes the SSD and the slow pool. Why that's important is because the cache pool is created FF, which means the files are put on there, the first drive first, and then it goes down the line, in this case just to the slow pool. In comparison, the slow pool is MSP MFS, which means that it balances the drives as it writes to them, putting the file on the drive with the most space available by percentage. So when the cache pool runs out of space on the cache SSD, it writes to the slow pool, and all the files then just get written across all the hard drives. First, I had these wrong. I had the cache pool listing all the drives as well, which meant that it would fill up the SSD, then it would fill up the 1 terabyte, then it would fill up the 2 terabyte. Obviously, I figured that out and I fixed it. Also, I had the slow pool set to the default category.create, and that meant that it also started filling up drives. So I believe 2 of my drives are still filled up. Hey, that's okay. From now on, it'll still balance them. So this was the Merger FS setup. It was really easy. This is pretty much all you had to do. Now let's look at the second thing I set up, which was SnapRAID. So this is my SnapRAID config. First, you list your parity disk, which is my disk 1. And you list the file specifically, and then I list all the content files, which I have one kept on each drive as well as in my var folder. And then you list your data disks, my 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 6 terabyte, 8 terabyte, 8 terabyte, and my disk 5, 16 terabyte. So if I lose any of these data disks, like if one of them fails, which does happen, this disk will be able to rebuild it. So I can lose one disk without losing any data. And so after this, I just had to run snapraid.sync, and that took about 20 hours the first time. But now it only takes a few minutes because it just has to write the differences. After I had SnapRAID set up, I needed to set up my cron jobs. And so if I run cron tab-e, you should see my cron jobs. And so you can see my SnapRAID sync, which is run every day at 6 a.m. And then it outputs to snapraid-sync.log, SnapRAID scrub command, which I don't know exactly what it does, but I hear it's good practice. So it runs every Sunday at 4 a.m. Outputs to snapraid scrub.log. Here you can see this, which is what we're going to talk about next. This is move files from cache to slow pool, and it's a script that does pretty much what it says on the tin. It clears up the cache so there's more room for those fast write speeds. And it runs every day at 1 a.m. So let's go look at that. So first of all, you set your target free space up here in gigabytes. I have it set to 500 right now. And then it'll do some math to get that in computer terms, I suppose. Like it needs to know it in kilobytes, since that's what this command returns. That prints it out so we know what we're aiming for. So then it prints out the current free space on every loop of this. This keeps running until it has current free space greater than or equal to target free space, and then it breaks, which means it exits. And so it keeps doing this until it gets to 500 gigabytes of free space. And as you can see, it goes and finds the oldest file, then moves it to the slow pool. Let's take a look at this in action. There might not actually be anything to move today if the scheduled nightly run. Okay, yeah, so this ran last night, and as you can see, target free space is 500, current free space is 500. So it finished, it's gonna exit. Let me go just write a few dummy files to it, and then we can actually see what it looks like in action. What's interesting about this is that it works with Merger FS seamlessly. I copy the stuff from the cache SSD to the hard drives, and the user doesn't even know. It still looks like it's just in the cache pool because the hard drives are part of the cache pool. It's a really interesting way how Merger FS, a union file system, works. All right, so copying those to the NAS is done. Let's really quickly run the script, and you'll see it print out a bunch of log statements. You'll also notice these are from 2415, so it is copying the oldest files, not the ones that I just copied. And like I mentioned before, if you do write more than 500 gigabytes to the NAS at one time, the cache SSD will fill up, but that's fine. It'll just start writing to the hard drives instead. And now I'm going to go delete those files, and you'll see that it actually can be over 500 gigabytes if you delete files that are on the cache SSD. Right, so now let's run the script again. As you can see, there are 524 gigs free because I just deleted all those files. I think that about covers my NAS setup. It's really simple right now. I want to install a piece of software that's going to make it appear like Google Drive on the front end so I can share files with people off of it and completely kick Google Drive to the curb. All right, I'm going to show off my beautiful networking. Ignore the jet engine activity that's going on over there. Anyways, I've got all 8 ports taken up on my router here. Let me see if I can remember what they're for. We've got Xbox One, Xbox 360, Switch, Plex server, laptop, my computer, Leah's computer, NAS, Home Assistant. That's all of them. That was 8. Anyways, this is the newest one. This is for the NAS, and this blue one goes to Leah's computer. They both run along the wall here behind the desks, and then they run up here. They run along the ceiling right here. Leah's Ethernet cable goes through into her room, across the light fixture, and down to her computer. Thanks. The NAS's Ethernet cable bypasses this vent, of course, goes along the wall, goes through this vent. Whoops. See, I shoved all the cable in there, but obviously some of it came out the other side. Anyways, then it runs down along the wall and over to the back of the NAS. I cannot wait until I'm not renting and I can drill holes in walls or run it under the house or something like that. But until now, this is the solution. Oh, and you might have noticed there's also these 2 cables here that look a lot like speaker wire. That's because they are speaker wire. They go up, go across this way, and down into my surround speakers for my 5.1 setup. Center speaker, and I got these big tower speakers here. Very old school, but hey, pretty decent sound considering. I got these for free from one of my uncle's ex-wives. These I got, including those 2, for about 15 bucks from a Goodwill. And this amplifier receiver that I got on Craigslist was about 50 bucks, and then I sold my old one for about 40 bucks. So all in, to upgrade from just these 2 to the 5.1 setup was about 25 bucks. I'm pretty happy about that. I did that back when I was in college. It was a good time. The neighbors to my apartment at the time did not love me.
There's a reason I framed the shot like this. I am listing these 2 cars behind me for sale, the RSX and the Outback. The RSX I'm selling just because I don't need an all-rounder. It's a great all-rounder, but I'm ready for a sports car. I can own multiple cars, I can have a practical car, and I can have a fun car. And the Outback, it's just boring. I rebuilt it, experienced it, it's time for it to go. Anyways, we gotta go take pictures for them. Step 0 is getting it started though. And this thing hasn't been running in quite a while, and it is very dead. It should start right up. It's never given me problems before. Oh yeah. No problem. I think the alarm system is unhappy. It's flashing the lights. Let's see if I can figure that out. Okay, there. Well, they were actually all high, so I just dropped them down to what it says on the door card, 33 in the front and 31 in the back. And this thing should be no problem. Well, with that, I think we're ready to hit the car wash and then the photography location, which I don't know yet. There's a little road near here that I think has some nice pullouts. Well, we found a decent spot to take some pictures, so Leah's gonna take care of that, I guess. Do you have no battery or something?
I don't know if I have a memory card.
This is what you get when you don't pay for professionals. All right, we have returned with SD card. All right, after a lot of photos and it being very chilly, we are done. Finally back with the Outback. Take some photos. I think we got all the pictures we need. Time to list these guys.
If you're curious, feel free to check out the listings. I've linked them in the description.
If you enjoyed seeing what I was up to over the past week, you might consider hitting that subscribe button to see what I'm up to in the future. And hey, if you don't like what I'm up to, you can always hit it again and unsubscribe. If you really like this particular video, you might hit the like button. And if you didn't like this video, then hit the dislike button and leave a comment telling me what I could do better in the future.